What is up, everyone? I am Bakaba. We're going to be going over the 2.4 patch notes today. So a lot to unpack with this one. Basically, the devs heard everyone's feedback, which is awesome. So there's going to be the final, hopefully the final PTR for 2.4 is going live on March 2nd, which is this coming Wednesday. And it's going to focus on ladder functionality, declone updates, along with some balance changes and bug fixes since the previous PTR. A lot going on. So looks like they're going to be doing a lot with the ladder aspect of it. Predominantly, I think, changing from ladder to non-ladder, that transition, and how gear will transfer over between ladder to non-ladder at the end of the season. Let's just jump into it here. They returned to us with adjustments to those changes based off our thoughts, opinions, and survey answers. Spent most of their efforts on the areas where the feedback was overwhelmingly unified, as well as some areas where they didn't push as hard enough in a meaningful way. So they're asking for our thoughts and feedback on these new iterations. Great. Just a note that there are going to be some outages, mini patches, things like that, as per usual in the PTRs. I want to gauge our feedback and reception. Really focus on the ladder aspect of it, the declone updates and the balance updates, which, based off my quick glance of this, are quite intriguing. So offline single player note, 2.4 introduces changes to the character save data as a result of new balance changes. A new folder has been created to support players testing offline content. Players will now be able to test classes from previous versions of D2R by importing those character files into this specific folder. So it sounds like you're going to be able to do the similar thing of transferring over files from OG D2 into D2R, but now you're just moving files or copying files from one D2R save file into this new folder. Pretty simple. Copy paste. Put the feedback on the forum, and any bugs, use the bug report forum. Ladder testing. Very excited to invite everyone to the ladder functionality test. D2R ladder represents an optional ranked competitive system that everyone's been waiting for since September. Each mode will have their own leaderboards, blah, blah, blah. When the ladder season ends, leaderboard rankings will reset, transitioning the characters to non-ladder, giving players an opportunity to store their hard-earned treasure and loot as a new ladder season awaits. That's that kind of transfer between ladder to non-ladder and the gear transfer and all that, especially with the shared stashes. The PTR test, they would love for us to focused attention on the presentation of the ladder on the front end. So it looks like we'll be able to see a little bit of the ladder itself, the user interface, and how that's going to appear within probably the chat area, or the lobby area. Team will be emulating a ladder season at the start and end during the PTR. Players can use the /ladder and /help ladder chat commands to retrieve season start and end info, which is useful. Ladder information is made available in the UI, and for console, it'll be updated upon loading into each game. That's pretty cool. This is where it gets interesting. At the end of a season, the ladder characters will be converted to non-ladder along with any ladder exclusive items that character has equipped. Once the season ends, you will have until the start of the following season after next to retrieve items. Okay, so it sounds like everything will be put into this one large giant shared stash tab on the non-ladder side. And when season 1 ends, you'll have the entirety of season 2 to transfer your items out of that kind of large shared stash area. Seems like it's going to be a withdrawal only into your non-ladder shared stash, those kind of 3 tabs, and any mules on the non-ladder side, which that's a 4-month time frame to transfer items over. That seems like a reasonable thing to do. Reasonable time frame. Any items not retrieved from that kind of transition stash will be lost forever. So have to remake them again, I guess, or refind them. Declone Changes. Okay, this is where it's going to get big news here. The way players summon Declone in D2R will remain the same as it was first in 1.10 by selling SOJs. However, they have made some changes to how and where that progress is calculated. Okay. So Declone will spawn off the region, not off the individual server, which is very helpful. Makes it a lot easier to find. Progress towards Uber Diablo is now tracked per gain type. Okay. So classic, hardcore, essentially all of your ladder characteristics are both ladder and non-ladder. So it sounds like if SOJs are being sold on a particular server, it's going to proc for everyone, not just ladder only or non-ladder only. Okay, misread that. The 8 progressions being tracked. So it'll be 1 being tracked on just classic, 1 being tracked on classic hardcore. So there'll be 1 being tracked on all of your non-ladder aspects. So 1 classic, 1 classic hardcore, hardcore ladder, expansion, so on and so forth. So 8 progressions depending on what you're playing as. I think a predominant amount of people are going to be on the expansion ladder and expansion non-ladder, along with some folks in classic and hardcores for both of those. Given this change, they've added new messaging for players to help them anticipate when Declone may spawn. This message will be sent out to all players in the region at certain tiers of progress, and the individual can manually check them by using a /Uber Diablo command in the chat. Okay, that makes it a little bit easier to figure out how many SOJs have been sold. We'd like to see a little bit more flexibility on this, but going in the right direction. Hope this makes it a little bit more easier for people to get space declone. Last changes. Amazon Impale animation speed increased by 30%, so it's gonna go faster. Plague Jab no longer fixed at 3 seconds as it was in the previous PTR. Damage and scaling have been adjusted compared to the live version right now. This should net out a 20% damage per second increase at level 1 and stack up to 33% damage per second when it's at max level. So you're going to be getting a 13% increase from level 1 to level 20. Multi-shot. New synergy, guided arrow. More damage. Simulation arrow, cooldown reduced by 40%. Okay, great. That helps a lot. We'll see how that affects the how things work with that in the PTR. If that's enough, or if it needs to be brought up a little bit more from the 40 to say 50 or 70%, something like that. We'll be testing this out. Guided arrow, new synergy to multi-shot. Looks like the physical bow is on. It's getting a little love, which should be very helpful when you're trying to farm at higher player counts. Developer comment, they know the feedback feels odd. The bow skills don't have any synergies like the elementals do. So they added synergies to help them remain viable. Great. Assassin, couple minor tweaks here. Awakened Inferno, Yards Calc in the tooltip, and Blade Fury, the attack rating increased by 10%. That helps. A little bit more chance to hit. Good things there. Barb. Looks like Barb's going to have a little bit of splash damage when it comes to leap attack. That's big. That is massive. Barb now deals extra physical damage to surrounding enemies within a range of 4.6 yards when landing from a leap attack. Damage scales per level. Modify leap and leap attack jump to give it a smoother trajectory that should keep the barb on screen at all times and reduce the jerkiness when he lands. Leap and leap attack now have a minimum jump height and duration. That's gonna potentially impact leap as a crowd control aspect in speedruns. So that's going to be interesting to test what those minimum height and durations are. And increase the mana cost of leap attack from 9 to 10, not a huge thing there. But this little bit of splash damage is massive. And it's going to scale per level. So that's going to be interesting to see what that actually is and how much it scales. Sword Mastery, they renamed it to Blade Mastery and added daggers into it in addition to the swords. Increased the base attack bonus from 40% to 28 to 40% from 20%. So that's going to be a huge bump on the attack rating bonus. That's big. Or the attack bonus. Axe Mastery, AR rating increased by 12%. And the attack base, increased base attack bonus to 40%. So same as Sword Mastery. So the increased base attack looks like it's increasing to 40% for your axes, maces, and swords. Getting a little bit of a AR buff on the axes and maces. Pole arms getting the attack bonus. Larger one from 30 to 44%. Same thing with spear. And throwing mastery. Increased the base attack bonus to 44%. Added chance to not consume quantity per level up to 50%. That sounds like you can max out at 50% chance to not consume an item. You have a 50-50 shot when you throw a spear, a knife, axe, whatever, to not consume quantity, which is big. Less chance going to town to repair. And crit strikes with throwing weapons now replenish quantity. So if your attack crits with a throwing weapon, it's now going to replenish the quantity. That's going to be interesting to see how much it's going to replenish. Is it just replenishing one? Is it replacing the whole stack? A certain percentage of the stack? It's going to be interesting to see what this exactly means in the PTR. Druid Armageddon. Remove the hurricane skill requirement for Armageddon. So they delinked that. Awesome. Let's see what that new skill tree looks like. Increase the missile damage radius by 33%. And increase the missile drop rate by about 30%. So they're going from about 3 a second to about 4 a second for drops, which is not too bad. We'll see how this works. It'd be nice if on the Armageddon, if you could get a little kind of icon similar to the meteor of where your missiles are going to drop as you're running around. That'd be a nice little quality of life change that could be made. We'll see how this all looks. Summoning. Druids can now have spirit wolves, dire wolves, and bears all summoned at the same time. They unlocked the summon druid. Finally. The zookeeper is finally a thing. That's awesome. The restriction of the druid being allowed only one type of summon at a time has restricted the viability of this build. No shit. And has hampered the fantasy of a druid summoner from living up to its full potential. Yes. We feel that a druid being able to summon all of his allies at once will make it more interesting and fun playstyle. Yes. 1,000 times yes. We'll see what they did in terms of damage scaling, if they played it with that at all. But being able to have all of your animals out at a time, along with probably one of your vines and one of your spirits out, is massive. Werewolf. Werewolf now only uses the new attack speed calculation that was originally introduced in the PTR. Okay. So that's that. Okay. We'll see how this actually works. Raised the werewolf attack speed cap from 75% to 150. Okay, that's good. They bumped up the cap. They went back to the original calculation to kind of play with things a little bit to reduce that doubling. And then they helped it and bumped up the cap. So it should help on that end. Okay. Fury increased speed between attacks by 40%. That's big. Werebear now only uses the new attack speed calc that was originally introduced, so it's the same as the werewolf. Bumped up the cap. Damage bonus per level increased from 8 to 15%. That's pretty big. Defense value increased to 40%. Defense bonus per level increased by 4% from 6 to 10. Cannot be interrupted while performing attacks or skills. That is massive for the werebear. Essentially, the werebear can't be stopped. Throw out a shockwave, whack him with some mauls and some fire claws. Maul now grants a plus 3% attack speed per charge. Ooh. So Maul is not only going to be able to hit more often, because you'll get that attack rating bonus for every successive hit, but now you're going to get an attack speed increase by 3% per charge, so for every hit. That makes it a little bit better, especially with your massive two-handed weapons. They've debated on the best way to bring shape-shifting druids forward. After much discussion, they're going to commit to the modern way of calculating attack speed for the wereforms. They've rebalanced the werewolf to allow that form to reach faster speeds than it could previously. As for the werebear, they wanted to deliver on the fantasy of a powerful, unstoppable killing machine. That just sounds awesome. That sounds awesome. Introduced uninterruptible attacks and skills. Interesting to see what skills it means on that end when you're in were form, as well as increased damage and defense. Will change the way players have played the werebear in the past, hopefully better. We'll find out though. For players who have loved their fast werebear builds, they've added attack speed bonuses to Maul, but added more changes in terms of speed on the werewolf side to balance it out a little bit. Okay, you're not going to have uninterruptibility, but you're going to hit faster. Now on to the Necro. Doesn't really seem like they did much to the Necro. Sorry, Necro fans. Even the developers seem like they're shrugging their shoulders on this. They've heard the feedback that golems don't feel valuable enough as skills. Without giving them a larger overhaul, they're hoping that these changes to the blood golem and the fire golem hopefully make you use them more often. Probably not. Mana reduction, attack damage increased by 20%. Okay. People will probably still use Clay Golem for the slow aspect of it. Paladin Thorns now deals a flat damage amount when you're hit, in addition to returning a percentage of damage taken to the enemy when hit. Okay, so they reworked Thorns a little bit, so now you actually have to be hit instead of just being attacked. But it seems now like they're stacking the damage to now deal both a minimum flat damage amount plus a percentage of the damage taken whenever you're hit. Okay, it's going to make those pacifist runs a little bit more interesting. Hopefully a little bit faster. Holy Fire changed the proximity bonus for the area damage when it's calculated. It will now deal 200% damage to enemies at melee range. So it seems like they're going back to that kind of scaled mechanic on the auras. So massive amounts, 200% damage taken at melee range, and it seems like it's going to be a diminishing amount the further out you go, probably up to a certain percentage and radius. What that is, we'll have to play with or see exactly. Maximum area damage value is incorporated in the maximum proximity bonus. That's going to be the tooltip modification. They bumped up the res fire synergy by 3% from 18 to 21, so they're bringing back that modification. They decreased it in the last PTR. They're putting it back to that original PTR 21%. Cool. Holy Freeze, same thing as the Holy Fire, except it doesn't look like they modified that synergy bump. So that may stay at 18. We'll see if they kept it or if they bumped it as well. Same thing with Holy Shock and Sanctuary. Holy Bolt now damages demons in addition to undead. And that now goes for Fist of the Heavens as well. Could Fist of the Heavens now overtake the Hammerden as the Chaos Clearer? Because you're going to have, when you're fully geared up, your Fist of the Heavens is going to be like 22 to 25k or something like that. And then you're going to have, your Holy Bolts flying out. And your Chaos Sanctuary is all undeads and demons. So you can just, spam Fist of the Heavens and wipe out everything. Especially when you have, your max FCR. That's massive. So now Holy Bolt and Fist of the Heavens can be used more than just on wave 2 of Bale. That's all it was ever used for. After seeing the feedback on the removal of the area damage scaling in the last balance patch, they agree that it's an interesting mechanic that's worth trying to balance properly. We reworked the proximity damage bonus while retaining the max 200% possible. Okay. So seeing how that kind of scales the further you go out, and then how far it goes out, is going to be an interesting thing to watch in the PTR. That'll be worth testing out as well. Okay, they dropped the mana costs on Nova front end. It's now 13 from 15. Okay. It's still going to be spamming mana pots. Mercs. All right, let's do this. Archers, Act 1, can now use the Amazon bows. Awesome. GMBs are actually going to be able to be used on Amazons now. The Act 1, so your specific bows, your Amazon bows will be able to use on those guys. So that's going to be helpful for damage. And can now gain plus Amazon skills bonus from gear. Ooh. Not just plus skills, but you can also utilize plus Amazon skill bonuses. That's an interesting mechanic. Act 3, based off the previous PTR. They're swapping frozen armor for chilling armor on your Act 3 Cold Iron Wolf. Or your Act 3 Iron Wolf shields. Okay. Chilling armor got a little bit of a tweak, so that may make it a little bit better. And here's the big one that may overtake the Act 2 Merc. The Barb. Can now gain plus Barb skills bonuses from the gear. They are creating a new Barb that's available for hire. Warriors can't use two-handed swords, but can use dual wielding. So they're utilizing Frenzy, Taunt, and Iron Skin abilities. Ooh. That's going to make stacking auras very fun. But that Barb, Last Wish, Hand of Justice. This is, you're going to be able to do a lot of stuff with this new Frenzy Barb. A lot. This is probably going to be the Barb to be used on any melee build and any summon build. Just from that Might aura you're going to get from those rune words. This is massive. And depending on how it works, you know, if it's just utilizing, you know, off one hand, not both hands, or however it's going to work, it's going to be worth testing. But this is huge. This is meta changing right here. How the AI is going to work is going to be a little interesting, but that's massive. Rune words. Plague can now be used on claws and daggers in addition to swords. Yes, thank you. Thank you. This is massive for the assassin right here. Massive. It gives you what, like a +9? Something like that when you get the right claw base. Infinity, Obedience, and Pride can now be used on spears and Amazon spears. Okay. This is going to make Infinity easier to get for a base early on without having a ridiculously high strength merc in order to use that Colossus Vulge while you're running around like an idiot trying to find a 4 open socket at Thresher, or unless you trade for one. Because you can now put it into other stuff early on, like a man catcher or some other things that do good damage, but also have that ability to, you know, more chance to get those 4 open sockets while still being able to have a mid-level, I'll call it that, merc. So more like a PD2 type of aspect here. Area level and monster updates. So on all of the new level 85 areas, they've increased the monster density, the unique monster density. So more farming spots with more unique monsters to farm. Yay. Yay. Act 3 just became massive for farming. Those temples. Stony Tomb and like the Icy Cellar in Act 5. Now massive for farming, and you don't even really need teleport to farm those areas. General and miscellaneous updates. Okay, some message of the day. It'll let you know if you're using an out-of-date patch version. Improved reliability of pets, summons, and mercs teleporting to the player instead of being despawned. Okay. That's good. Never good to have your Merc or your summon despawned. Barb, just a little bit more smoothness on the leap and leap attack. A little reduced jerkiness when he lands. New characters will now be at the top of the character selection. Thank you. Every time you create a new character, you couldn't tell if it was at the top of the stack, the bottom of the stack, or somewhere in the middle. So thank you for doing that. Merc UIs will now display if the Merc can't use a skill because of their, level. That helps. Okay, some messaging if you're trying to create a private channel longer than the character limit. Add a /offline chat command which sets your user preference to offline. If you want to play alone and not have your friends know that you're playing online without them, you now have a way to do that. Vendors. Players can now buy pre-filled tomes and keys when using a controller. That is huge for console and controller players. It is a pain in the ass to try to fill up your tome and your keys one scroll at a time or one key at a time because you don't have that shift click. That's a huge quality of life change for console players and controller players. Performance, particle effects on some console platforms, VFX quality option for PC, optimize the inventory quick move actions to reduce delay. Okay, that's helpful. The offline game difficulty scale setting will now persist between game sessions. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Having to do /players 3, 5, 8, 1, whatever, every time you're trying to farm up in single player is a pain in the ass because they got rid of that, enter up arrow option. Now you just set your scale and run. Thank you. Add in an option whether or not to confine your mouse cursor to the game screen. Thank you again. I don't know how many times I've been trying to scroll over to another window, Discord or what have you, and having to Alt-Tab out of it instead of just being, okay, I'll just scroll over here from screen 1 to screen 2. And VRAM usage bar in the settings menu. Okay, I guess maybe people want to overclock. Bug fixes. Large font mode seems to have been fixed. Barb, here's a big one, where your attack speed while dual wielding could be incorrectly calculated based on which hand it was held in or which order they were equipped in. That is huge for the Barb, and that being fixed helps so much. Fix an issue where the Grim Ward synergy from Fine Potion wasn't functioning. That's a little bit of an issue. Be nice if they, made Grim Ward so you didn't have to rely on a corpse to, spawn it, but I guess that goes with the fantasy of, Grim Ward. It's good that the synergy is now working. Hopefully. Druid fixed an issue where Hunger was not costing mana if it was cast without a target selected. Okay, a little important. Druid Solar Creeper will now properly consume corpses and restore mana wherever the Druid is missing mana. Rabies now properly consumes mana when your attack misses. Oh, that was a nice little bug. You only got dinged mana cost when you actually hit something. Okay, Paladin looks like there's a lot of controller fixes based off weapon swapping when wielding a bow with no ammo. Same thing with not being able to disable auras if you're using a bow with no ammo on controller. Conviction tooltip would display incorrect information. Thank you for fixing that. Fixed an issue where Sanctuary Aura was not granting its bonus damage to undead. That's just a little bit of an issue because that's the whole point of Sanctuary. Thank you for fixing it. And now Sacrifice can hit moving targets. Speed runners jumping up and down everywhere off this. Thank you again. Sacrifice actually works as intended now. After all these years, thank you. Fix an issue where using a skill could be interrupted if a player dodges, avoids, or blocks while executing a skill. Isn't that the whole point of dodge, avoid, and block? You really can't do your skill in the middle of a dodge, block, or an avoid and cast the skill at the same time. I'd rather have the skill be interrupted than take the damage, especially if it's from, a guy that can do a shitload of damage to you. Okay, we'll see how that works. Fixed an issue where uninterrupted skills could be interrupted within a frame, within a 1-frame window if you were spamming the skill. Uninterrupted should be uninterrupted, Thank you for fixing that 1-frame window while spamming. Fixed an issue where the skills granted by items sometimes couldn't be used on a controller. That is a huge issue. I'm sorry, console and controller players, if you experience that. That sucks. Especially if you're trying, to teleport with a teleport staff or a low res or whatever with a wand. That's a huge issue. Fixed an issue where you can be blocked from talking to an NPC if a player initiates a trade with you while you are trying to talk to the NPC. It's an issue. Weapon swap was not updating faster run walk on the game client. Not be able to observe another player's attack animations for the rabies skill if the attack missed. Fixed an issue where skill bindings for O skills wouldn't persist after dying and joining a new game. Thank you. Having to rebind, teleport, or something like that was just a pain in the ass. If you had it based off, a teleport staff or something like that, you'd die, you get your gear, and you had to rebind your teleport instead of that skill still being bound off your hotkey. They fixed the Decay seal. Thank you. How many deaths have there been trying to telekinesis or just, quickly hit that Decay seal and not clicking and just being swarmed by Venom Lords or whatever and just dying. Thank you for fixing that. Glacial Trail entrance wouldn't highlight. Okay. And they removed the fire enchant bug in Nightmare. It's only been 10 years. Thank you for fixing that. Or even longer than that. Stamina bar is now refilling correctly. Act 1 caves had misplaced walls. Okay. This, I think, is coming from the Death Lords being repeatedly placed in a stun state, so that hit recovery state, and unable to execute attacks. So essentially, you were stun locked from the Venom Lords. Not the Venom Lords, the Death Lords predominantly. With their melee, you just kind of get stuck in a stun and not be able to attack or do anything to get out of it. The melee skills would often miss when attacking movement targets, such as Fend, Fury, Sacrifice, and Zeal. Very helpful. Fix an issue where a channel ability would stop casting if you were directly targeting an enemy with your mouse prior to casting, and that enemy died. So it sounds like if you cast Blizzard and then was spamming Frozen Orb, and then went to cast Blizzard, but the Blizzard you cast was on an enemy that you just kill with your Frozen Orb, it would just stop casting Blizzard. As an example. Quick class melee skills will behave differently depending on what they were bound to. Behavior has been unified such that left click quick cast skills behave in the way the right click skills behavior operated. Okay, I don't use quick cast, but if that was an issue, yay, it's fixed. Force move and quick cast could still operate when in a full screen UI menu in legacy mode. Okay. Okay, so fixed an issue where, so this goes back to melee against enemies that were moving or, just barely within striking range. So they should have been hit, but they just weren't. Increased mana thing based off networking. Replenishing and propagation item modifiers were not triggered when quantity was removed from melee skills. This might be referring back to the F Titans issue, where if you use the F Titans in a melee capacity instead of a throwing capacity, you could actually break it. And you wouldn't be able to replenish the quality because it was broken. That's a big fix. But sadly, no Kane ID fix, which is sad. Kane should be able to ID items in the cube. He's able to tell if, Kaleem's items or the Herodric staff items are in the cube. He should be able to ID items in the cube. Especially since that's your inventory when the rest of your inventory is all full of, charms. Character creation fixes with invalid character names. Fixed an issue where using a PlayStation controller on PC, some button prompts could appear with an Xbox controller icon. That's just, a little bit of an issue. I'm sure Microsoft and PlayStation and Sony did not really like that, their brand. I see that being a little bit of an issue for them. As well as the user think, okay, I need to hit X, but no, that's an A now, or whatever it is. It's now letters instead of shapes. Fixed an issue where binding a skill to key 2 without binding anything to key 1 would show the keybind UI to not show. Okay, so it sounds like there's another fix that issue with controls. Graphics to Mo Highlands could pop in and out. The items were appearing invisible when standing behind transparent walls. DLSS fixes. Black boxes and PS4 high memory scenarios. Ghosting based off DLSS. Localization. Tool tips, Xbox stuff. Social menus. Localization chat commands. Europe and Korea were not able to block or report users. How are you supposed to block and report the bots? Come on. Friends list is now going to function properly. Right click content for that. Thank you for fixing that. Where you could not highlight game names and join if using controller in the lobby. Fix an issue where you could get stuck attempting to join if you tried to join a game through the friends list while you were rate limited. Which hopefully is being fixed as much as possible to that. I think it was like a 15-second, queue time, rate limit time. 10 seconds, something like that. That should help that issue. But it's good they actually fixed the main issue part of that. Swapping between keyboard and controller on the front end could force you into offline character tab and prevent you from accessing the online tab for a duration. Fixed an issue who have people set to offline and they would appear online to their friends list. Okay, you're online. No, you're not. Yes, you are. Gotcha. That's what that is. Okay. So it sounds like they fixed the switch issue with the friends list, being able to actually remove friends. Visual issue when opening the cube while in the middle of a trade. Game name and passwords from just hitting the play button will now be hidden. Okay, whatever. Not a big deal on that one. Fix an issue where your character selection wouldn't persist if you exited the lobby. Fix an issue with the 3050s. Crash errors, random stability fixes. Fixed a crash that could occur during the Pandemonium event. If that happened to you, I'm sorry. Having to spend the time or, to trade runes, to collect all of your keys, to then run your Pandemonium event, get your organs, spawn Uber Tristram, and then crash. And potentially not be able to get back in the game due to that crash. And now you've lost your keys, your organs. That sucks. Okay. All right. 2.4 starting on Wednesday for the PTR. So if we're starting on Wednesday with the PTR, and assume the PTR is probably going to run 2 weeks. That's 1 week, 2 weeks. So probably on the March 15th, probably when the PTR will end. And there'll be a 2-week duration between that. In order to gather feedback and finalize things and work with the consoles. So 1, 2, that gives us March 30th. And then that will probably be when the 2.4 will finally launch. And then there'll be 1 to 2 weeks of 2.4. Which means ladder will either be dropping potentially April 8th or the 15th. So probably the first or second week of April is probably when ladder will finally launch. So start getting that vacation time all prepped out for the middle of April. Don't get too, specific with your dates just yet, but get your time ready to go in. Ladder's coming in about a month and a half or so. Thanks everyone for watching. Don't forget to click the like and subscribe buttons below. Feel free to join us on stream anytime. Twitch.tv/Bakaba12. Link in the description below. Have a good one.